Afternoon. Wait for some other folks to get in here, but I've got a little break, so thought I'd talk about the Breonna Taylor shooting that happened in Louisville, Kentucky. Happened a couple months ago, but it's been getting a lot of play lately. So I'll wait for a few more people to come in, and then I'll get started. But there are a few different aspects of this case that I really want to highlight. Yeah, you know what? I think I'll just go ahead and get started. So, with the shooting of Breonna Taylor that happened in Louisville, Kentucky, like I said a few months ago, there are a few different things that I want to talk about here. Now, before I get into it, I want you to be paying attention to how the conservative movement is reacting to this case. I'm not going to name any names because there's going to be a lot of people weighing in on this. But I really want to focus on the statism angle here because to me, in my estimation, that is the most important aspect of this case. So, in case you don't know about what happened with Breonna Taylor, with the information that we have right now, and there's still going to be more information coming out, but basically, a few months ago, she was asleep in her apartment. Her boyfriend was with her, and three police officers conducted a no-knock raid on the house. They had a warrant to search her house. Now, she was not a suspect, and neither was her boyfriend. In fact, the actual suspect in the case had already been arrested the day prior to this no-knock raid. Yeah, guys, I hear you, Wendy. I'll be talking about that soon. You already know where I'm going with this. So, basically, they conducted a no-knock raid because they suspected that there were drugs in the apartment. Now, what happened is that the police claim that they knocked on the door and announced themselves, which already is kind of odd to me because why would you obtain a no-knock warrant and then announce yourself anyway? Now, also keep in mind, these officers were not in uniform. They were wearing plainclothes, and they rolled up in unmarked cars. So that already raises a red flag to me. Why would you get a no-knock warrant and then show up in plainclothes in unmarked vehicles to then still knock on the door and announce yourself? See, the thing is, and maybe this is just my ignorance. Maybe this is a normal practice. If I have any law enforcement officers watching this who can weigh in and tell me if that's normal procedure, I would definitely appreciate that. But from where I sit, that just seems kind of weird to me. It doesn't seem normal. So basically, according to what the police say happened, they knocked on the door, and then they took a battering ram and broke the door in, and then there was a gunshot that came out, and it hit one of the officers in the leg. The police, the three officers, proceeded to fire over 20 shots into the apartment. And actually, some of those bullets went astray and went into a neighboring apartment where there was a pregnant woman there. Thank God she didn't get hit. But the tragic part about this is that Breonna Taylor was struck 8 times. Now, they went in and they actually took the boyfriend in, and they're charging him with attempted murder of a police officer because he admitted to firing a shot when they came in. Now, as far as his defense goes, and what his attorney is saying, and then the family of Breonna Taylor is actually filing a lawsuit against the Louisville Metro Police Department. So they allege that the cops never announced themselves, that they just busted in the door, but that Kenneth was hearing them outside, and he thought that somebody was trying to break into the house, and he was right, but he thought it was a burglar, not the police. So it is possible that they could have announced themselves and he just didn't hear them. But his attorney also says that he tried to call 911. Now, I don't think this has been verified yet. I don't know if we have a record of that call yet. But if that's the case, as time goes on, we're going to hear that call, or at least get verification that he called the police. And if he did call the police, that means that he truly thought that these officers were actually home invaders trying to steal something, which would put him within his rights to fire a shot. And by the way, he owned his gun legally. He did not obtain this gun illegally. So, this will be another subject, but I don't know where the NRA is at right now. I don't know why they're not weighing on this case. I don't know if they're waiting for more information, but it's already looks suspect enough for people who value the Second Amendment to be weighing in on this, because he owned the gun legally. And from the details of the case, it sounds like he may have had a good reason to think that they were breaking into his house and that they weren't police officers. So, and again, they weren't wearing uniforms. So it's not like he could have just looked out the window and seen, oh, those are cops. So that's fine. I mean, if the NRA is waiting for facts, then okay. But if this comes out a certain way and they don't weigh in, I'm not going to be the only one taking them to task for it. So anyway, like I said, they fired into the house. Kenneth wasn't hit, but Breonna did lose her life that night, unfortunately. And now the case is going into litigation. There's an investigation. The governor has called for an investigation into the state government's handling of the situation. And but here's the thing. I mean, both Kenneth Walker and Breonna Taylor were Black, and this was a case of police killing a Black woman, seemingly for no good reason. I mean, from what I see here, I don't see any good reason for force to have been used. Again, these people were not suspects. They weren't seen as dangerous. And what happened is they went into that house and found no drugs, no evidence of illegal activity. Neither person had a criminal history. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that they were 100% innocent, but if Conservative Inc. wants to bring up the criminal history when it has nothing to do with the case, then I can bring up the lack of criminal history. And this is even more of an indicator that something went wrong here. Now, the reason that why the police got the warrant in the first place is because they suspected that the actual suspect had been using that house to have drugs delivered there so that he can take them and sell them or whatever it was he was doing with them. They suspected that people may have been using Taylor's house, even if it wasn't her. They suspected that people were using her house to conduct their illicit drug operations, basically. Now, I did see a tweet today, and I'm going to look more into this, but it did indicate that the entity, the postal office, basically said they never confirmed for the police that packages were going there. I guess that the postal service has to report if there's a suspicious activity as far as using their service, if they're being used to mail illicit activity. And that was also the case here in Austin when we had the issue with that bomber who was mailing bombs to people. They got FedEx, UPS, USPS involved with that too. But the police basically said that the post office confirmed this, and now I'm hearing that that's not the case. So if they didn't really have a good reason to do this no-knock raid, that's going to make them look even worse. I don't know if people are going to be held accountable, but like I said, there is being a lawsuit being filed, and there's going to be other questions raised. Why were they in plainclothes? Why did they arrive in an unmarked vehicle? Did you really need to conduct a no-knock raid just for drugs? I mean, I don't know if this was weed or meth or crack or what, but either way, it just sounds like this was just a horrible situation. Now, the part that I want to focus on, there's two aspects of this that I want to focus on. And a lot of people are going to be bringing up the race issue. And again, watch how right-wing media covers this. Watch how right-leaning pundits cover this. A lot of them are going to, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of them are already trying to see if there's a way that they can pin this on Taylor and Walker and absolve what the police did, or to at least kind of downplay it. Now, Maj Touré, y'all know Maj Touré. They did that walkaway summit last night. It was Maj Touré, Shamika Michelle was on there. She was moderating. Olivia Rondeau, YG, I can't remember his last name, and Burgess Owens. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody. Oh, and Joy Villa was on there too. And Maj Touré made a really, really, really good point in how he framed police officers. And he said police officers are the foot soldiers of the state. And I'm going to be using that from now on because that is 100% spot on. That is what they are. Police officers don't make the laws. They have no involvement in that. They just carry them out. So when a police officer has the authority to conduct a no-knock raid to go after drugs, it's because elected officials and bureaucrats gave them that authority. If they didn't have that authority, there's no way that they would have been able to do that. So a lot of people also, especially on the left, are going to focus on the race issue. But I want to talk more about statism, because statism is the issue here. And the people who are trying to excuse what the police did or at least downplay it, they are standing up for statism, whether they intend to or not. And that's another thing Mama Shrey has been saying. There's a lot of people on the right who are actual statists posing as conservatives. And one thing I say is, one of the quickest ways to turn a conservative into a Marxist is to criticize the police. Because a lot of people on the right who claim that the conservatives are full-blown Marxists when it comes to these issues. They will stand up for the state tooth and nail, especially if it's happening to somebody who's not in their community, then they're fine with it. And Wendy, when I say statism, I'm talking about promoting more government authority and more government control in our lives. The more the government is granted the authority to interfere in our lives and to overstep their boundaries, the more statism there is. So that's what I mean when I say statism. So basically, I was speaking to Angela Swinson about this the other day on my YouTube channel, and we were talking about how important local politics is. And we see a story like this, and the racism and the race distracts from the true issue here. We're focused on Trump's Twitter. We're focused on Obamagate. We're focused on the show that we're being given in the media every day, but we're not talking about the local government or even the state level. And there's a song by a group that I like a lot called Backwards, and I'll post this on my Twitter too. It's one of my favorite groups now, and it's like, I love it. If you're familiar with Eric July, he's a very prominent libertarian, and this group is like if anarcho-capitalists formed a group like Linkin Park. If you're into like when they mix metal and they mix hip hop, you'll like Backwards. But Eric July has a really good line in this song called Self Ownership. So I'm just going to read that to you guys really quick. Now, I can't rap, so I'm not going to rap this out, all right? Whatever. Anyway, the line. Basically, it's where it is. Okay. It says, start making sense when you realize the lies. I hate to say it, but your protesting is ill-advised. You put your life into the hands of a bunch of silly guys. It's a contradiction if freedom has to be legalized. For example, when a cop's shooting a black man, you focus on the racism, ignoring all the statism. Holding signs, rioting is not about to save him, because you must have forgot that that's the power that you gave them. So, while we're all focusing on the racial aspect of this, who's going to take the government of Louisville to task? Will the mayor have to pay for this? Because the mayor is over the police department, just like the president of the United States is over the Justice Department. Now, you can't elect a police officer, but you sure as hell can elect his boss. So people voted for this mayor, and I don't know how much of this is the mayor's fault, but the fact that there are laws that allow officers to do this kind of thing could have been in place before the current mayor, but the mayor and the state and the city council, the city legislature, are the ones who would have to address this. By the way, it's going to be, when the lawsuit goes on, it's going to be the word of the plaintiff against the word of the defendant. Why? Because this division that conducted this no-knock raid was not required to have body cams. Now, you see that in most police organizations nowadays, they have to wear a body cam so that it can absolve a police officer if he's wrongly accused of abusing his authority, or to indict a police officer when they actually are abusing their authority. Give me 1 second. I gotta get my Marco Rubio on real quick. All right. So the question is, why would anybody on the right be focused on justifying what the police did here? Because it's pretty certain that this whole thing went down in a way that it shouldn't have gone. It could have been because the police officers did things that were wrong. It could be that the local government gave them the authority that they shouldn't have to do something that is clearly morally wrong here. We're talking about drugs, things that people choose to put in their bodies. And yeah, I'm going to go libertarian on you right now, because this is another example of how statism plays a part here. Why should somebody be subject to a no-knock raid for a substance that people want to put in their bodies? Now, on a moral sense, I don't agree with it. I'm not into drugs like that. But does anybody deserve to be thrown into a cage for it? Does anybody need to be at risk of losing their lives because of the state trying to enforce those laws? At the very least, drugs should be decriminalized. It shouldn't be that if you're caught with drugs, you get thrown in a cage. It shouldn't be that if you have drugs, the police can knock down your door in the middle of the night and shoot you. And I don't care if they had drugs or not. Even if they had found drugs in the apartment, that still does not justify that action. And Wendy, you make a good point. Drugs do affect other people's lives when people use them. That's true. I could use that rationale to say that we should make alcohol illegal, make psychotropic drugs illegal. A lot of mass shooters were found to have been taking psychotropic drugs. Should we outlaw those? No. But, I mean, like I said, at the very least, they should be decriminalized. Nobody needs to be thrown in a cage because they like to smoke weed, or even if they're doing something that's even heavier. That is statism right there. On top of that, we have these laws that enable the foot soldiers to do all kinds of horrible things to people. I mean, even if you look at the Ahmaud Arbery case, like we're all focused on what the McMichaels did, and we should be. But there's one aspect that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, not to black people, but to a lot of others. It's kind of flying under the radar a little bit. You don't hear a lot of people on the right talking about it. But again, it took 2 months for them to even arrest the McMichaels. Why? Because the district attorneys were trying to sweep it under the rug. They were trying to cover it up. That DA's office, turns out, has a history of corruption. And yet they're not being taken to task. They're not being held accountable. That's statism, because they're basically to act in any way they want to because they know people aren't paying attention. If they were, they would vote those officials out, elect people, bring them in who would actually work to clean this stuff up. There are no laws that should exist that should protect these people. And yet, the laws are really supposed to protect us. So, I'm going to wrap this up really quick, but I want you to, as the story unfolds, there's going to be more information that comes out about the lawsuit. I mean, with the lawsuit going on and also with the investigation. Thank God they are investigating. I don't know if the federal government is involved yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if the DOJ got involved in Breonna Taylor's case as well. But a woman lost her life because state foot soldiers were given the authority to conduct a raid on her home in the middle of the night because they thought that there might be drugs there. Just think about that for a second. I'll say it again. Foot soldiers, men with guns, have the authority in the city of Kentucky to conduct a no-knock raid and to break into somebody's home with guns, shoot them dead because they suspect that there might be drugs. To anybody who values liberty and wants limited government, this should be an outrage. This should inspire action. And I hope that there are liberty lovers in Louisville who will rise up and get with their government and say, what the hell are you guys doing? While we're over here going about our everyday lives, what kind of laws are you passing? Maybe we need to vote you out. And this isn't about Republican or Democrat, what I'm talking about here. This is about liberty and statism. Which do you prefer? I know which one I prefer. So I'm going to head out, get on with the rest of my day. This will also be on my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe, read my stuff on redstate.com and at libertynation.com. You can get me on social media at Jeff on the Right. I'll see you next time.